You believe you know the story of Deborah, the prophetess, the judge of Israel. You picture a woman of wisdom, a dispenser of justice, a beacon of hope in a dark age. But what if the truth is far more unsettling? What if Deborah was not merely revered, but feared? Not with the brute force of a Samson, nor the strategic cunning of a Gideon, but with a dread that permeated the very fabric of society, a cold certainty of divine retribution for those who defied her sacred command. You stand at the precipice of this forgotten narrative, peering back into a time when the very heavens seemed to weigh heavy upon the land, suffocating the spirit of a forgotten people. Imagine it, you are in ancient Israel, 2 centuries after the exodus from Egypt, a land promised, yet now profoundly compromised. For 20 long years, the iron fist of Jabin, the Canaanite king of Hazor, has crushed the lifeblood from your people. His military commander, Sisera, a name whispered with a guttural fear, commands an elite force of 900 iron chariots, the ancient world's most formidable war machines. On the open plains, they are an unstoppable gleaming horror, their blades scything through any who dare to resist. The roads are deserted, ravaged by marauders. The villagers, once vibrant and free, now cower in fortified corners, their once-proud cities crumbling into dust. You witness the despair in their eyes, the hollow hunger that gnaws not just at their stomachs, but at their very souls. The very act of travel becomes an ordeal fraught with peril, forcing the beleaguered Israelites into winding, treacherous paths, avoiding the main arteries that Sisera's chariots dominate with brutal efficiency. Your own hands are empty of weapons, for the Canaanites have systematically disarmed the tribes of Israel, fearing any latent spark of rebellion. You see the blacksmiths, once vital to the community, now idle, their hammers silent, the very tools of defense denied to them. This isn't merely military occupation. It's a profound economic strangulation, a cultural subjugation designed to break the spirit, to sever the covenant ties. Josephus, the ancient historian, paints a stark picture of a people on the verge of total collapse, their faith wavering under the sustained, unyielding pressure of an enemy that seemed divinely ordained in its strength and cruelty. But then, from this abyss of despair, a voice arises, one that challenges every societal norm, every expectation of leadership in that patriarchal age. Deborah, a prophetess and a judge, holds court under a solitary palm tree in the hill country of Ephraim, between Ramah and Bethel. You approach her, drawn by an invisible current, and you find not a warrior clad in armor, but a woman of profound spiritual authority, whose pronouncements carry the weight of divine decree. She is the final arbiter of disputes, the intercessor for a broken people, the whispered hope in a land devoid of it. Her presence itself is a mystery. How could a woman, in a society so rigidly structured, rise to such a singular position of power and influence? This wasn't simply a matter of a woman stepping into a vacant role. It was a divine statement, a rebuke to the men of Israel who had faltered, who had allowed their courage to be eclipsed by fear, their faith to be diluted by years of oppressive silence. You witness her summoning of Barak, a military commander from the tribe of Naphtali, and the divine command is clear. Go and march to Mount Tabor, taking with you 10,000 men from the people of Naphtali and Zebulun, and I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you by the river Kishon with his chariots and his mighty army, and I will give him into your hand. It is a clear, concise, and utterly terrifying directive, promising a confrontation with the very force that has held them in bondage for 2 decades. Yet Barak, a man of renown, hesitates. His response, delivered with a chilling fear that mirrors the very despair of his people, echoes through the annals of history. If you will go with me, I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go. You feel the weight of his reluctance, the deep-seated terror that 900 iron chariots can instill in the bravest of men. It is a moment that demands a profound soul-searching. What spiritual paralysis had gripped the men of Israel that they would cower before such an enemy, even when a divine promise of victory was delivered through the lips of a prophetess? Was it a lack of faith, or an acknowledgement of the sheer, overwhelming technological superiority of their foe? Deborah's reply is swift, unwavering, and laden with a subtle, yet profound, prophecy that would send shivers down the spines of any man who heard it. "I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead to your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." This declaration, delivered with the calm certainty of one who communes directly with the Most High, shatters Barak's hope for singular renown and instead promises a victory whose ultimate credit will fall upon the shoulders of another woman. This prophecy sets a terrifying precedent. Not only would God use a woman to lead the charge, but the most pivotal act of deliverance would be performed by one, effectively humbling the male warriors and challenging their very conception of martial glory. It's a foreshadowing that leaves you questioning. If even the glory of victory was to be snatched away from the male warriors, what other terrifying ironies would unravel when divine judgment finally descended upon the oppressor? So, as we prepare to uncover these timeless truths, if you find value in this journey, consider leaving a like to support the channel. It makes a huge difference. Share your own insights on this mystery in the comments below. Now, still your heart and open your mind. The veil of history is about to be torn away. Our revelation begins. You stand with Barak and his 10,000 men, not as a silent observer, but as one of them, the fear a cold knot in your stomach, but also a sliver of hope, born from the unwavering certainty in Deborah's eyes. You watch as they ascend Mount Tabor, a strategic height that offers a commanding view of the plain of Esdraelon, the vast battlefield where their destiny and the fate of Israel will be decided. Below, the dread force of Sisera's chariots, a dark, metallic tide, gathers near the river Kishon. The sheer audacity of this plan to confront the most advanced military technology of its age with a lightly armed infantry feels like a death wish, yet Deborah's prophecy echoes in your mind, a counterpoint to the thundering hooves and the glint of iron. As Barak's forces position themselves, a profound, almost imperceptible shift occurs in the atmosphere. The sky, once clear, begins to darken, not with the gentle approach of evening, but with an ominous, rapidly building storm. The air grows heavy, charged with an inexplicable tension that is more than mere weather. This is where the ancient texts and even archaeological insights provide a crucial, unsettling, lost context. The plain of Kishon, typically dry, is fed by numerous seasonal wadis and springs. Intense, sudden downpours, though rare, could transform its seemingly benign landscape into a treacherous quagmire. You feel the first drops, large and cold, striking your face. Then, the heavens unleash their fury. Torrential rain begins to fall, turning the hard-baked earth into a viscous, grasping mud. The very ground beneath Sisera's chariots, designed for speed and maneuverability on firm terrain, becomes their undoing. You see them, the magnificent iron machines designed for death, now bogged down, their wheels sinking deeper and deeper into the mire. The horses, panic-stricken, struggle and slide, their powerful legs rendered useless. The weight of the iron, once their strength, becomes an anchor, trapping them, immobilizing them, making them vulnerable. What was once the cutting edge of ancient warfare transforms into a horrifying spectacle of entrapment and despair. This wasn't merely a coincidence of weather. It was, as the historical narratives suggest, a divinely orchestrated intervention, a direct act of the Almighty to level the playing field, to render the might of man utterly impotent before the power of the heavens. As Sisera's chariots become hopelessly mired, chaos erupts within the Canaanite ranks. Their formation breaks, their discipline shatters. You witness Barak's men, emboldened by the miraculous turn of events, descend from Mount Tabor like a torrent, no longer fearing the chariots, but seeing them as ensnared prey. The battle becomes a systematic slaughter, not of equal forces, but of a trapped and floundering army against an inspired one. The river Kishon itself, now swollen by the deluge, becomes a deadly accomplice, sweeping away those who try to flee across its banks, carrying their bodies along its raging currents, turning the battlefield into a watery grave for the oppressor. The Song of Deborah and Barak, recorded in the Book of Judges, explicitly states, "The torrent of Kishon swept them away, the ancient torrent, the torrent Kishon. March on, my soul, with might." This isn't just a poetic flourish. It's a terrifying testament to the sheer scale of the destruction and the unique, almost sentient role the very land played in the divine judgment. Amidst the screaming and the carnage, one figure stands out: Sisera, the dreaded general, his face contorted in a mask of primal fear. He abandons his magnificent chariot, a symbol of his power and authority, and flees on foot, a solitary, desperate shadow against the backdrop of his dying army. His mind races, seeking refuge, a place to hide from the wrath that has so unexpectedly consumed him. He runs towards the tents of Heber the Kenite, a nomadic family living in peace, ostensibly neutral in the conflict between Israel and Canaan. You can almost feel his desperation, his conviction that this neutral ground will offer him sanctuary, a temporary reprieve from the divine storm that has crushed his empire. He arrives at the tent of Yael, Heber's wife, exhausted, humiliated, and utterly broken. You imagine the scene: a weary warrior, accustomed to commanding respect and fear, now begging for mere survival. Yael, seemingly a picture of hospitality, invites him in, offers him milk to quench his thirst. A gesture of profound welcome in the ancient Near East, a bond of trust and safety. She covers him with a rug, promising him concealment and rest. He closes his eyes, believing himself safe, believing in the sanctity of the tent, the ancient law of guest right that should protect him. But you know, as the master storyteller, that this apparent sanctuary is, in fact, the very execution chamber appointed for him by divine decree, a place where the most unexpected instrument of judgment would deliver the final, shocking blow. As Sisera sleeps a deep, exhausted slumber, Yael takes a tent peg and a hammer. You feel the weight of the moment, the chilling precision of her intent. This is not a warrior's sword, but a common, domestic tool, one that women used daily to secure their homes in the windswept plains. She approaches him, her movements silent, deliberate. And then with a single, decisive blow, she drives the tent peg through his temple, pinning him to the ground. The very act is a profound violation of hospitality, a shattering of ancient norms, yet it is presented in the biblical narrative as an act of divine service, a fulfillment of Deborah's prophecy. It is a moment that forces you to confront the unsettling paradox of divine justice. That God would choose a woman, a Kenite, ostensibly outside the covenant, to perform such a brutal yet pivotal act of execution, and that this act would be praised as most blessed among women. Barak arrives shortly after, pursuing Sisera, only to find him dead, lifeless, pinned to the earth by Yael's hand. The prophecy has been fulfilled, not by the sword of a warrior in the heat of battle, but by the quiet, terrifying resolve of a woman in the sanctity of her home. One is forced to ask, what does this shocking act, carried out by a seemingly unassuming woman, tell us about the nature of divine judgment? Is it merely the ultimate expression of God's sovereignty, or does it hint at a deeper, more unsettling truth, that the instruments of divine wrath are often those least expected, chosen precisely to humble the mighty and shatter human pride, even if it means subverting every social norm and expectation of the age? The sheer, unexpected brutality, combined with the divine sanction, leaves you to ponder the chilling implications. Was Yael merely an avenging angel, or was Deborah's prophecy a veiled warning that the feminine was about to unleash a terror far more insidious than any male warrior could conceive? You stand amidst the eerie silence that follows the cataclysm on the plain of Kishon, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth and the distant echoes of war. Sisera, the formidable oppressor, lies dead not by the sword of a valiant warrior, but by the quiet, decisive hand of a woman in her tent. This shocking end to Canaanite tyranny reverberates through the land, transforming the very act of domesticity, the setting up of a tent, into an instrument of divine retribution. The victory is complete, utterly devastating for the enemy, and yet profoundly humbling for the men of Israel, whose glory was usurped by the very gender they had marginalized. The aftermath is not silence, but song. The Song of Deborah and Barak, one of the oldest and most poetically complex passages in the Hebrew Bible, erupts from the heart of Israel. You hear the passionate cadence, the rhythmic celebration of YHWH's triumph, but also a chilling undertone. It is a song of victory, yes, but also a profound declaration of power, a testament to Deborah's unassailable authority and the terrifying efficacy of divine judgment when wielded through unexpected vessels. This isn't merely a hymn, it's a proclamation, a warning etched into the very stones of the land for generations to come. The hymn praises Yael not just as a heroine, but as most blessed of women, her act lauded as righteous. It describes the agony of Sisera's mother, waiting by her window, wondering why his chariots delay, unwittingly foreshadowing the horrific truth of his demise. This stark juxtaposition, the blessing of the killer, the agony of the victim's mother, creates a profound ethical dilemma that has puzzled scholars and the faithful for centuries. For many, the act of Yael is an unsettling reminder that divine justice in ancient times did not always conform to modern sensibilities of chivalry or even conventional ethics. Rather, it bespoke a raw, visceral judgment against those who oppressed God's people, even if the means were brutal and swift, delivered by hands least expected to wield such power. Deborah's role extends far beyond merely predicting victory or leading the charge. She is the embodiment of divine will, the conduit for a judgment so absolute that it redefines the very concept of warfare and leadership. Her leadership ushers in 40 years of peace for Israel, a generation free from the iron yoke of oppression. You witness the rebuilding, the return to prosperity, the resurgence of trade, the re-establishment of secure pathways. This era of peace, unparalleled for its duration in the tumultuous period of the Judges, speaks volumes about the profound impact of her leadership, and perhaps the lingering fear her name instilled in potential aggressors. Her wisdom, combined with the terrifying divine power she channeled, became a formidable deterrent. For centuries, the faithful have wrestled with the question of whether Deborah's story presents a challenge to traditional gender roles not just for her era, but for all time. Was her rise a unique, divinely appointed exception to patriarchal norms? Or was it a deliberate, foundational statement about the equality of spiritual authority and leadership, regardless of gender, especially when men failed in their divinely appointed duties? The lost context here suggests that the very act of a woman judging and leading in such a definitive capacity was a profound societal disruption, a bold statement from the heavens. It implies that when human structures fail or corrupt, the divine hand will raise up whomever it chooses, regardless of convention, to fulfill its purposes. The profound shift in power dynamics, where a prophetess leads, a male general hesitates, and a non-Israelite woman delivers the final blow, forces a re-evaluation of what constitutes true strength and authority. Deborah's strength lay not in physical prowess, but in spiritual certainty, in her unwavering connection to the divine. She embodies a terrifying form of spiritual power, a conduit for a God who does not shy away from using the unexpected, the marginalized, to humble the proud and execute his justice. Her wisdom became a sword, her prophecy a weapon, and her presence a living embodiment of the Most High's wrath against injustice. So, was Deborah the most feared judge of ancient Israel? You are left not with a simple answer, but with an echoing certainty. Her fear was not that of brute force, but of prophetic unerringness, of an almost terrifying certainty that if you defied her, you were defying the very will of God, and divine retribution would be swift, precise, and delivered by means you could never anticipate. Her name became synonymous not just with justice and wisdom, but with an unyielding, almost supernatural capacity to summon the powers of heaven to crush her enemies. The terror she inspired was a holy terror, a fear of the divine judgment she so clearly channeled. Kings and generals who heard of her, who knew the story of Sisera, would have surely thought twice before raising a hand against the people of Israel when Deborah still breathed. Her legacy, far from being just one of triumph, is a haunting reminder that the divine can wield its justice through the most unexpected hands, leaving an indelible mark of fear and reverence in equal measure. The story of Deborah transcends mere historical account. It is a timeless testament to the relentless, often disquieting nature of divine intervention. It reveals a God who shatters human expectations, who elevates the humble and confounds the mighty, who can turn the elements themselves into weapons of justice. This narrative compels us to confront the uncomfortable truth that faith, when fully embraced, can unlock terrifying power, reshaping destinies and redefining the very boundaries of human potential. Deborah's era reminds us that the spiritual battlefield is often fought on terms incomprehensible to the conventional mind, where the weakest vessel can become the most formidable instrument of divine will. You are left with the chilling, yet awe-inspiring, realization that the Lord of hosts chooses his champions not by their strength, but by their obedience, and when called, they can unleash a force that leaves empires trembling.